I'm Carmiece Graves, and I practice family law in the Washington, D.C. area.
One of the questions we have to think about, like say if you're married and you're dealing with your house and you own it together, the question is, well, we have an asset that we need to deal with. Sunset, they just abandoned me and come back, they've been gone, they've been gone. They've been gone, they ain't seen nobody, so I guess it's over. Like this, man, you just can't leave. Not true. Okay, that's what they call me. Are there people throughout history that despite whatever circumstances, they did what they wanted to do? Welcome. It's Wednesday at 11 and you are tuned in with Carmiece T. Graves. Coffee with Carmiece weekly every Wednesday at 11, unless I have a court hearing or something. I'm a family law attorney practicing bankruptcy, also estate planning in Maryland, Washington, D.C. And once a week I come on the show just to kind of connect and let you guys know what's going on in my shop, share any nuggets of wisdom that I think could be for the greater good. It's a thing. I went to Howard. It'd be like, do you have anything for the greater good of the order? Can you share something that would be for the greater good that would enrich us all, enlighten us, and have us be more well-versed to deal with obstacles in life? Because clearly, guys, that's what we're up to as human beings. We're up to dealing with obstacles, expanding, growing, making life better, but it is fraught with challenges. So that's one of my, missions here, it seems like, on the planet that has selected moi to jump into the battle sometimes with you to help you sort through an issue. But, so I wanted to share some things, what's going on, because there's things that I encounter that's pretty unique. I'm like, this is a pretty unique lens. And I wish more people sometimes knew some of the things I knew that I know before they would have done certain things, so just for the greater good. So, but also Coffee with Carmiece, I get to kind of just connect with you, tell you what's on my mind, because I think it's important. So, because I want to, no. Okay, it's going to be that kind of morning. Y'all know how it goes. Nothing new here. Nothing new. Been on, video, Facebook Live for about 4 or 5 years. Thanks so much. And we are doing well. So let me tell you what's going on. So we're going to talk about high conflict custody, what that has looked like during COVID. Very interesting, you guys. And then what I think sometimes can be a really big challenge to getting the results you want, depending and planning to litigate custody in our courts. So we're just going to talk about that realness so you can really get a true perspective on what really brings it together, high conflict custody cases, what it's going to take. And it's a lot less about the law and more about you. So you could get a jump on that one. You could get a jump on the stuff that's about you. Get right to it. Nobody needs to be involved with that but you. So other things we're going to talk about. So we are celebrating the 100th anniversary of Black Wall Street and what happened 100 years ago when 300 people were killed and there was just racist attacks destroying economic wealth of African Americans. And it has brought about a lot of discussion about reparations and kind of, that discussion. And I'm just going to chime in about that. Don't have that much to say about it, but I do think it's, hey, I'm trying to, have some current things going on, be a part of the show, because I am plugged into the greater world to a certain extent, because there's some crazy stuff I plugged in too much. I'm telling about these crazy stories that I've come across and some views I have about, shows and how they're really putting out these crazy images of dating and relationships that really are setting folks up. I'm like, dang, if you really listen to the music, some of this millennial music, child, if you listen to the words, I'm like, that is sad and horrible. Like some of it is appalling. You're like, I'm concerned. Hopefully this is just your unique artistic point of view and not representative of a generation. Some of that's alarming, but I'm going to leave that to the artist. It must be just the artist, but I don't think so. Then gonna go over talking about, Another big thing that is, piqued my interest is China's change from one child to three and the response there. It's just interesting. It's also kind of some of the views that millennials have about having kids. So it's all about kids custody today. We're going to tie it all in and go through it. So let's jump right in. So let's talk about, okay, so, this idea that, I've talked about this reparation thing. To me, it's something that I don't think I'm kind of like I'm, plotting my financial future on it happening. Like, it's like the lottery, pretty much. And to me, the odds of actually monetizing it. But maybe I should have a more, glass half full approach. But I think the argument about why it's due is really deep and serious for me, not more so about, the collecting of the damages. Now I know, let's get the money to Chris Stewart and them, bank pumping them. Y'all, I know the money team could get this done. But it's about, this idea that, because of what has happened, that there are lasting impacts on current generations that are descendants of, slaves in this country. Like there's real current impacts on, and it's through epigenetics. And I think that is the connection to me sometimes that is not made, that thinking that this slavery thing happened way, way long ago. And now we're in the current. Let's just be current. Like, why do we have to think about the past? Well, some of this stuff, the trauma is passed down genetically. People are still impacted by it. And then, like we're dealing with like Tulsa and, here you had where, did a great job of building a community, and then just this blatant taking of it. It's really, so to me, those things are more important to acknowledge kind of what has happened, that there are current and lasting impacts. That's really the best knowledge for the impacted, so that you can kind of have, Naeem Akbar has written a great book about this. You know what I mean? It's documented, but it's in the book. It's in that book. It is so cool to kind of, look at some of the vestiges on our behavior. You know what I mean? And kind of saying, okay, I can choose that or not choose that, and really make sure that we are more informed so that we can create the kind of life. And knowing that we are the creators of our lives, so important. I'm telling myself that every day because it is a challenge out here, y'all. So let's talk about some of these challenges. So today we're going to get into custody and what that looks like in terms of co-parenting when it becomes high conflict. So I told you, China just said, you guys can have more kids. And they did not expect the response because, China had this rule. There were so many of them. They're like, look, you only have one kid. Look, we can't afford it. We can't have all y'all in here populated like this. You're going to have to slow it down. Population control rule. That rule has been in place for, number of years now. And now there's a whole generation that was born under this rule, and they're only kids. You know what I mean? So imagine they have like a whole community of just single, like only children, because that was the rule. And now, they recently said like a few years ago, you can have 2 kids. And now they're like, 3 kids. They're realizing their population is aging and they're not having a lot of kids. So, that's detrimental to the future of any community because the kids are your future. So when you dumb down the numbers or constrain the numbers of your future, you have a smaller future as a country because it's about people. So the interesting thing is that, the young people was like, they started laughing at the concept. They're like, have more kids. Are you crazy? Like, I can't afford more kids. They're like, I have aging parents to take care of. I have one child. I'm barely making it. It's so interesting, their perspective on having kids and how many to have and the impacts. Also, too, they're saying a lot of millennials are sharing some of those views. They're like, look, I'm still living with my parents. I got all the student loan debt. I can't buy a house. What do you mean? A kid? Okay. So it's interesting how these viewpoints about having kids, you just think it's just kind of given, so it's interesting. So brings us to today's topic of custody. Custody, high conflict custody, and specifically during the pandemic, what has that looked like? So let's just paint this picture so you understand the cases that I'm seeing a lot of during this pandemic. So clearly in this scenario, typically in this scenario, the parents are not living together. Okay. They live in two separate households. You do not need to be living in two separate households to file for custody. Not saying that, just saying that's typically the scenario we're dealing with, that two people are living in separate households and there is a conflict regarding kids. And let's talk about it, during this pandemic, what it's looked like. So what I'm finding, and usually these kids are aged probably like between like 9, 13, 10 to 13 years old, this model, right? And they've been living between the two households with under some arrangement, probably more with one parent than the other. And what it seemed like has happened during COVID, that the kids will get stressed out. You know what I mean? They had to, do the at-home learning, couldn't dare to do the social distancing. That's a lot for a little kid, and maybe they're the only kid and they're with this one parent, and that them and the parent just had it out. Like, look, I can't do Y'all think it's the parents that's just done with the kids. The kids be done with the parents who like, look, I can't do this with you no more, okay? I want to go over to the other parent's house, okay? I want to go over there, but they make like, but they're still young. So it's not like this adult discussion like this. Even adults have time, I'm not even going to judge a child because on a wrong day, adults don't do it right? Myself included. So in this scenario that the kids, that's kind of how it's coming all across, it looks like, there's something that goes, there's a big conflict between one of the parents, with the kids who's been taking care of the kids. Probably that kid is primarily with that parent, and COVID just got stressful. And the day came where it was like, the kid was over it, but probably then had to run for cover to the other parent, because now it's a big old deal and you don't know the repercussions. It'd be like, after that blow up, you probably could be on punishment for years. You know what I mean? So the kid's like, look, I'm out. I blew up. I need to go to the other parent and I need to, make sure I have some cover while that other parent cool down. You know what I mean? Like, I done went too far. Okay. My mother or father is going to kill me. I'm going to go call somebody to be involved to make sure. And I'm saying, and listen, though these cases happen, and a lot of that is, and I'm joking and I'm laughing at it, but when it's happening, it is not funny. When it's happening, it's devastating. You know what I mean? Like, this child is no longer in the house. They've gone over to the other parent. Maybe, it's just a lot going on. Okay. So it's been a big explosion. We can after, you know what I mean? I'm on the other side of dealing with some of these conflicts. And I'm going to tell you, on the front end, ain't no On the back end, now that we have been able to let the situation cool, we've been able to get involved and do what we need to do to get this, situation and this relationship back on track. Now I can, say, hey, listen, this is what I'm seeing. So look out for this, because, when I'm in the middle of that storm, it is serious. Okay. But I want you to have a broader lens on, as both parents in this scenario really cannot afford to let their personal differences about them and their relationship and whether they like each other, whether they can, to have them be divided on making decisions that's in the best interest of the child. Having that division, kids can, manipulate that break between you two. And it's going to be imperative when it comes to your child that come together. Like, you develop it. I don't know. Listen, I don't know how you get there, but I need you to get there, because then you're going to have this ping pong back and forth sometimes. And what will happen, because it looks like, still unified in disciplining the child, figuring out what's best for the child, not like you guys are at odds. So even with it, when it comes to the child, they're like, I know she act like that. So yeah, I know what you're saying. I know she do act like that sometimes. So no, you don't have to listen to her. that would probably not be the approach to take. So having a unified household and understanding that you have to be unified on making decisions regarding the child, as difficult as that may be, it's really important because, they're still kids. So, and they're going to pull at your heartstrings. You go over and be like, mom did something to me, dad did something to me. I mean, clearly that's your response, and you don't kind of mess with them. This could really escalate really quickly, and so let's talk about why I don't think, and what's going to happen is, generally with family law matters in general, you really want to maintain as much control of the decision making and the order. So let's just go over this real quick, because this will make more sense. Like, oh, I didn't do any of the common stuff, but I don't think anybody did. Okay, so what you would do is, let's think about this. At the end of the day, if you file for custody because there is a dispute and it's good for that, like if there's no communication, if you can't, you guys are stuck and you can't get unstuck, the process will, filing a custody will get something going, right? What you don't want to do is get it all away. Use the litigation process for its timetable, the ability to make folks respond and get this going, because if you're trying to, communicate and the other person has, there is a break, so we've done the ideal. The ideal is something we're working towards, like really co-parenting on a unified front, because you could be blindsided by your own, discontent with the other parent as it relates to the decision making and what's best for the child, because you're just the anti that person. So whatever they say, it's a no. So they're talking about the child, and you're like, it's a no. You give them the perpetual no, but sometimes the child might need you to put that aside and do this thing. And I'm just seeing sometimes, it doesn't work like that. And you do need the court to come in. So let's kind of set some expectations about how you can best maximize that experience and what to expect. Okay. So, it's good, like I said, to get the process going, to get that communication rolling. If you're stuck, you're on this timetable. The civil procedure of court makes it move. I file it on this day, in 30 days, this happens in 30 days. Is everything be like 30 days, unless it's emotions, but a lot of it's in 30-day chunks. So that, hey, look, I give you a month, and you need to go in and respond, or we're moving on without you, and you're not going to get what you want, or you are going to get what you want, but it makes it move. Now, that is the momentum that it can bring to a case. And thereafter, I think it's, always best, if possible, for people to maintain control and dig deep and maintain control of what's in the best interest of the child as much as you can, really reasonably, honestly, in your heart of hearts, agree that a proposed situation works best for the child, but digging deep. And digging deep is getting past how much you don't like the other person. That is the digging deep. That is, you like, that person just, that's how it be. That's the digging deep. What's the work? For the children. So you do that. And then what you're able to do is have mediations and settlement conferences. Now, what you really don't want, you know what I mean? What you really don't want, nobody wants this really. You don't really want the judge making the decision regarding a custody order regarding your kids. Do y'all really want that? I mean, court is really great for property and money and stuff like that, but your children, the judge be like, man, like y'all couldn't come up with anything? Like okay, let's do it then. Let's do it. Okay. Who's the problem? You know what I mean? And usually, even when you take control of it, it's a dig deep, and everybody isn't really sold on sometimes, in an idyllic world, hey, but a lot of times it's a rub. You don't even want to co-parent. Usually you'd be like, I just want my kid to be with me and this other person to disappear. So so to the degree there's a tug of war with it anyway, but then those are the terms that you guys agreed to. Then imagine the risk, you know what I mean, giving it over to a court. And, sometimes it's not doable, but I think a lot of times it is. I think more times than not, it is doable. So I'm going to put it out there that I believe in y'all, that if this comes up for you, I believe that you can do it. I really do. And if you really can't, you should really go back to mate selection. No judgment. I'm along this path with everybody else, okay? But that was a little bit real. But anyway, so hopefully, you guys could do that. Please do that. So that at the end of the day, because all that's going to happen is spend a lot of time, a lot of money, go to court, put on your case, bring in your evidence. And at the end of the day, what do you get? You get an order. You get an order that's signed by the judge. That's law. Okay. There's a law now, that will be enforced to its letter, and it's written down, it's typed down, after we did the case and the judge signed it. But guess what? If we retain control of the case, which I advocate for, we can write the words in the order. It can become law and signed by a judge and skip all the litigation part, right? We can just figure out what the law is going to be in y'all world. Y'all, listen, I was down south. I was down in Georgia. I was military brat. So I got to explain this, y'all, because I've not been able to shake it. And you're like, is she like Brooklyn? I'm like, Brooklyn, y'all. I'm a military brat, so I'm diversified in my experience. Okay. So anyway, we can skip the litigation part and just get to writing the order, writing the law between the parties, between the parents regarding how this thing gonna go with y'all kids. That's what you get. You get the order, you get the law. Now, second part, I did want to go over this. What time? Let me see how we're doing on time. Okay. No, I'm not running too long. Okay. So we can do this 20 minutes. Okay, good. Listen, enforcement. It's a big one. It's annoying. So let's talk about that part. So we got the moral there. To the extent, dig deep. And before you even hook up with this person, if we're at that stage and you hearing this video, like, I ain't got no kids. Okay. So at this stage of the game, I don't know if you still be listening, but hopefully share this with somebody. Just share. If this is happening, you're going to know what I'm saying is true. Listen, look for these qualities on the front end. Your ability to problem solve together, conflict resolution, like how do you resolve your problems? I think a relationship really, the testament to a lot of it is how do you overcome difficulties together? Is that where it all breaks apart? You know what I mean? Is it like a sloppy mess? Are y'all on the street wilding? Like what's going on? Like how does that look when it's a breakdown? I think that shows that will tell you a lot about the quality of the relationship you're in. Because if you're gonna move forward with having kids, then it's going to be even more important. Listen, I got these extra lights. So office light that went out. So it's really important that you're able to come together and do the decision making. But listen, hold on right there, because I'm way too cute to just be sitting in the dark. Hold on, y'all. Let me give y'all one quick thing. Let me run the commercial real quick.
I'm Carmiece Graves, and I practice family law in the Washington, D.C. area.
One of the questions we have to think about, like say if you're married and you're dealing with your house and you own it together, the question is, well, we have an asset that we need to deal with. Sunset. I'm back. Okay, lights back on. So I need the clapper for real. I really do. So what we're saying is, let's talk about this second stage of enforcement. So now that we wrote the law, right? We wrote it, our personal law between you two. This is the agreement, and the courts will back you up. Sometimes you have to go to this next stage, and it's important to know that you may have to enforce it. I got a call recently. We did the divorce. We wrote the judgment of absolute divorce, and now a party is not complying with what it said. And you're like, okay, what do we do? Well, now we're going to have to go let the wheels of justice work like they promised to work, saying that if you violate this order, there are going to be consequences. So let's file the motion. Usually that's going to be something like a motion for contempt, because it's an order. So once you get your custody order, your divorce decree, and there's some terms in there and somebody has not complied with it, then we're in the world of contempt, meaning that you go back to court and be like, look, judge, court, they're not following this order. But think about this. So this is why fundamentally, this point right here, you see where we're about to go down this slippery slope? This is why that foundation of digging deep and working together is so important. Because when you have that perpetual gridlock, what are you going to do? Go back, oh, they didn't come on the weekend. They didn't, reimburse me for the sneakers and the ballet what shoes. And, oh my goodness, you could spend a lot of money in this area. So really working on this on the energetic level, emotional level, get deep with it. Just do something, because getting it unstuck and being able to come together to make those decisions work for the best interest of your children can really add years to your life, I'm sure. Because, being free of the amount of stress, toxicity, conflict, you're going to have to go deep. So that's what I want to talk about on the second part, that there is that follow-up. Sometimes you're going to have to follow up. If there was an agreement, even if it's not just related to custody, but it's any term that you guys settled in your divorce, if that term was not enforced by the other party, then we're going to have to go back and we're going to have to do a motion to enforce the agreement. Or if it's like custody, saying that they're in contempt of the order. So it depends on whether it is related to property, or whether it's or alimony or something like that, or whether it's regarding your children. They're not exactly the same thing, but technically, but conceptually, they are. Well, you may have to come back to the court to get some help to do the enforcement. And some people do test it. You have those people like this. I don't care what the papers say. I'm not, especially, when that's, always makes me laugh. But when women are ordered to pay child support, that is so much resistance. Sometimes the men be like, you know what? It's just a little bit. Never mind. I'm not even going to go through this with her. But if you need to enforce it, that is the process. And you can get the custody. Oh, let me make sure you guys know how to meet me. I didn't do my little thing there that I'm supposed to do with the banner. So let me run the little banner and we are going to be rolling out of here this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hopefully you like the video. You'll share it. You'll reach out. You'll get a consultation if you need one to figure out if there's a holistic approach that we can offer to you to help resolve your legal issue and get you into a better place. Getting past the issue to the resolution is where relief and joy lie, but going through it, you need a team. So actually, before I go, I want to give a shout out to my family, because no one's doing this alone. You know what I mean? Like, we are not in this world doing this alone. I have my team that holds me down. Core of that is, just my family, always making sure that I'm okay. And that's what we need. We need community. No one's doing this alone in life. So when it comes to, what you're going through, whether it be custody or divorce or any of these unsavory matters, you don't have to do it alone either. You definitely have a team with the Carmiece Graves Law Firm to help you get to the other side. So if you need me, you know where to reach me. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy the weather. Summer's finally here. Continue to be diligent and safe. And I will tune in with you guys next week. Thanks so much. All right. Let me see what I got to do. Bye.
I'm Carmiece Graves, and I practice family law in the Washington, D.C. area. One of the questions we have to think about, like, say if you're married and you're dealing with your house and you own it together, the question is, well, we have an asset that we need to deal with. Sunset, they just abandoned me and come back. They've been gone. They've been gone. They've been gone. They ain't seen nobody, so I guess it's over. Like this, man, you just can't leave. Not true. Okay, that's what they call me. Are there people throughout history that, despite whatever circumstances, they did what they wanted to do?